Hello and welcome to another session of Insights with me. Today I shall be talking on the topic of how to use cadmium as a neutral electrode. I have made this video in response to requests from listeners of my podcast in which I had talked about how to use cadmium as the neutral electrode to check battery design. The cadmium electrode is used by battery designers to check battery performance mainly during the discharge of the battery or the cell. It is also used in production at the time of plate formation and battery charging. Now I shall explain how the instrument set is made before I venture to explain as to how it is to be used. You have two brass rods which are machined with pointed ends. Now these pointed ends are made because these are going to be the probe which are to be connected to the electrode of the cell or the battery when you do the testing. Now these brass rods are inserted into plastic or wooden handles which are available ready-made. Now these plastic or wooden handles are only for holding the probes, and in both the probes we have to have some threading done for fitting the screws. Now these screws are fitted because the wire from these ends go to the multimeter, and you usually have a hole in one of the brass rods through which the cadmium electrode can be inserted. Now, once you're inserting the cadmium electrode and you want to hold it tight in that particular brass rod where you're inserting it, so there is a provision made in such a manner that you can fit a screw on the other side and tighten it in such a manner that this cadmium electrode can be held tight. Now, for this, you got to make a threading on that brass rod in such a manner that a screw can be put from the other side and it can hold the cadmium electrode tight. And as far as the other two screws are concerned, they are not through and through. There is only some threading made in such a manner that we can put the screw, and between the screw and the brass rod you can put a wire which goes to the multimeter. I'll now show you in the next slide how this connection is made. So you have the wire coming from one brass rod to the positive. Now this brass rod does not have the cadmium electrode, and the one in which you have the cadmium electrode, you put a wire from that to the negative. So when you connect to the multimeter, you set it on a DC voltage and take the readings of the DC voltage which is the DC voltage which is to be noted. Now this is how the total voltage is checked. So you have the multimeter and you connect both the probes to the cells, to the cell terminals, that is the positive and the negative, and you measure the total voltage and you get the total voltage of the cell. When you want to check the reading of the positive with respect to cadmium, what you do is you connect the probe to the positive and directly to the multimeter, and you get the positive plate reading, and then you get the cadmium electrode, you put it into the electrolyte without touching either the positive or the negative, and you take the cadmium voltage with respect to positive. And so you have the total voltage already, you have the cadmium voltage with respect to positive. Now we go to the next slide, where what we do is we interchange the wires on the multimeter and you measure the cadmium voltage with respect to negative. So you take the negative readings directly and you have the cadmium electrode. Again, you put it into the electrolyte without touching either the positive or the negative electrode or the plates inside. You should not touch the plates also, and you just put it into the electrolyte and you take the readings again. Now this readings, how you need to analyze the reading and how you know whether your positive plate is the one which is failing during the discharge or whether it's the negative plate which is failing during the discharge. All this you can find out once you have these readings with you. And how to analyze this reading is already explained in my podcast, and the podcast is available on various streaming platforms like Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google. So you can listen to the podcast and understand how the analysis needs to be done. And in case you go to my website, this podcast can also be, heard through, after you go to the website and you can listen to the podcast. And in case you want to send an email, this is my email ID. Thank you very much. And I hope this session will benefit all those listeners, especially the ones who sent me a message saying that they want to understand how these readings are to be taken. So this is the contraption which I mentioned. It has been shown in the first slide, and something made like that can be used. And if you have the cadmium electrode, then it's possible to take the readings and also do the analysis in line with the podcast. Thank you. Thank you very much.